The sharp crack of a perfect shot rang through the Pinnacle Marksmen's Society, followed by a wave of applause from affluent spectators clad in high-end shooting attire. Ethan Caldwell lowered his custom Beretta, a smug grin spreading across his bronzed face as the target revealed another bullseye. This was his domain, a realm where wealth, influence, and precision formed an unbreakable wall between the elite and the rest. If you've ever been overlooked or made to feel insignificant, you'll want to hear what happened next, the moment that turned everything upside down. At the nation's most exclusive shooting range, Sarah Bennett stood near the entrance, gripping her faded leather satchel, her plain grey sweater and off-the-rack jeans making her stand out like a wildflower in a manicured garden. At 36, she was neither youthful enough to draw attention nor prominent enough to earn respect in this crowd. The receptionist, a polished young woman with sleek auburn hair and a rehearsed smile, glanced up, then quickly looked away as if Sarah were a minor inconvenience. "Excuse me," Sarah said softly. "I'd like to sign up for today's open practice session." The receptionist's eyes flicked up again, scanning Sarah from her practical flats to her simple braid. "Members only," she said curtly. Sarah exhaled slowly, pulling a creased envelope from her bag. "I have a day pass, it was a gift." Across the room, Ethan caught sight of the newcomer. At 43, he was at the height of his career, a 4-time national champion, Olympic silver medalist, and the ambassador for Beretta's luxury line. His family's real estate empire had funded world-class training since his youth, with his natural talent sealing his rise. "Well, look at that," Ethan called out loudly. Someone must have missed the turn to the discount store. His entourage chuckled on cue, drawing eyes to Sarah, who was heading to the beginner's range, her gaze fixed downward. Claire Thompson, the club's manager and a retired competitive shooter, frowned at Ethan's remark but held her tongue. Sarah settled at the far end of the basic range, carefully setting her satchel on the shelf and unwrapping a cloth bundle to reveal a standard Sig Sauer P320, functional but unremarkable compared to the bespoke firearms of the club's elite. Ethan and his group drifted closer, drawn by the prospect of amusement. $10 says she misses the target entirely, one quipped. Ethan smirked. "Make it $10,000, I bet she's never touched a gun." Striding over to Sarah's station, Ethan leaned in with mock courtesy. "Pardon me, ma'am, but are you sure you're in the right place? This isn't a book club." Sarah looked up, her brown eyes meeting Ethan's green ones with a quiet steadiness that briefly unsettled him. "I'm just here to practice," she said evenly. Ethan recovered with a grin. "Practice? Sweetheart, this is for real shooters. $10,000 says you can't hit the bullseye from 50 yards. Sarah's face remained calm, though a spark flashed in her eyes. "I don't have that kind of money," she replied. Ethan's grin widened. "If by some fluke you make the shot, I pay. If you miss, you leave and don't come back. Deal?" Claire, who had approached during the exchange, looked concerned. "Mr. Caldwell, perhaps we should let our guest practice undisturbed." Ethan dismissed her with a wave. "Stay out of it, Claire, just a friendly bet." Sarah's gaze flicked to her left hand, where a plain silver ring glinted on her finger. She twisted it once, a subtle motion unnoticed by most. "All right," she said softly. Ethan's eyebrows rose, then settled into a victorious smirk. "Fantastic. Ladies and gentlemen, we've got a show." No one noticed Sarah's posture shift as she lifted her Sig Sauer, her spine straightening, shoulders easing, feet settling into a balanced stance. No one recognized the expert grip or controlled breathing. And no one knew the silver ring once belonged to one of the most revered snipers in Delta Force history. 3 years earlier, Sarah had stood beneath a drizzling May sky, the sharp report of an honor guard's rifles piercing the somber silence of Arlington National Cemetery. The folded American flag pressed against her chest felt unbearably heavy as she watched her husband's casket lowered into the earth. Chief Warrant Officer Daniel Bennett had served for 16 years, his unmatched marksmanship earning him medals and the nickname Spectre among his peers. The official report cited a training accident during a covert operation. Sarah knew the truth was buried in classified files she'd never see. They met in Asheville, North Carolina, where Daniel was visiting a wounded teammate. Sarah, then an auditor, led a life as orderly as her spreadsheets. Their chance encounter at a local cafe stretched from a spilled coffee apology into hours of conversation. They married 7 months later in a quiet ceremony, with close friends and Daniel's battle-hardened comrades. Life as a Special Forces spouse taught Sarah to navigate absence and uncertainty. Daniel would vanish for missions, returning with scars he wouldn't discuss and burdens he couldn't share. "I wish I could tell you everything," he'd murmur, brushing her cheek with his rough hand, "but you're why I make it home." During one long stateside stint, after a mission left Daniel with a shoulder injury, he took Sarah to a range. "If I'm gone so much," he'd said, adjusting her grip, "I need to know you're safe." What started as a precaution became a shared passion, offering Sarah a window into Daniel's world. He was a patient teacher, she a quick study. "You're a natural," he'd said after her first bullseye. Steady hands, sharp eyes, and cool under pressure, the trifecta. Over 3 years, whenever Daniel was home, they'd train together, hunting her stance, breathing, and trigger control. "Shooting, not about force," he'd explain. "It's about mastering yourself, your body, your breath, your fear." Those range sessions were their sanctuary, moments of wordless connection. Sometimes Daniel's teammates joined, one joking, "Spectre's obsessed with your aim, says you're sharper than most of his recruits." The last session was 3 days before Daniel's final mission. He'd been quieter than usual, watching Sarah more than shooting. "Promise me," he said, voice low, "you'll keep practicing even without—" Sarah nodded, not grasping the weight of his words. After the funeral, Sarah couldn't face a range. Daniel's firearms stayed locked away. She moved to Philadelphia for a fresh start, taking a job at a financial firm where no one knew her past. Then, a week ago, a package arrived from Daniel's teammate Ryan Carter, containing a day pass to the Pinnacle Marksmen Society and a note. "Daniel would want you to keep your promise. 3 years is long enough to mourn alone. Step back into the light, Sarah." Now at the Pinnacle Marksmen Society, with Ethan's challenge hanging in the air, Sarah felt a flicker of her old self, the woman she was before grief dimmed her spark. As she raised her Sig Sauer, muscle memory kicked in. The world shrank to her, the gun and the target. She inhaled, held it, exhaled halfway and squeezed the trigger. The shot cracked clean and sharp. The target retrieval system whirred, and when the paper arrived, a perfect hole marked the bullseye's center. A stunned silence gripped the range. Ethan's amused expression faltered, uncertainty creeping in as he noted Sarah's flawless form. He grabbed the target, inspecting it. "Beginner's luck," he declared, voice tight. "Anyone can fluke one shot." Claire stepped forward, her professional demeanor giving way to admiration. "That was an outstanding shot, Miss Bennett," she said. Sarah nodded. "Sarah Bennett." Claire smiled, both apologetic and impressed. "Ms. Bennett, perhaps you'd like to try our advanced range. You're clearly no novice." Ethan cut in. "Hold on, one fluke doesn't make her a pro. Let's see her do it again with real stakes." Murmurs rippled through the growing crowd. $50,000, Ethan announced, pulling out his checkbook. 3 bullseyes in a row at 75 yards, miss one and you admit you cheated and leave." A senator in the crowd placed a hand on Ethan's arm. "Ethan, maybe ease up." Ethan shrugged him off. "What, afraid her trick won't hold?" Sarah could walk away. She'd only come to honor Daniel's promise, not to perform. But Ethan's arrogance stirred something deeper, a fire for those dismissed or underestimated. "I'll take your challenge," she said softly. "But if I win, the $50,000 goes to the Heroes Recovery Fund." Ethan paused, then nodded. "Fine, you won't win anyway." As Sarah moved to the 75-yard mark, Claire whispered, "Ms. Bennett, Ethan holds the club record at this distance. No one's topped him in 6 years." Sarah nodded. "Thank you, Miss Thompson, I'll manage." Ethan played to the crowd. "Ladies and gentlemen, prepare to see either a miracle or a humiliating flop. 3 bullseyes at 75 yards with a standard pistol, impossible for an amateur." Sarah loaded her magazines, Daniel's lessons echoing, "Under pressure, trust your training, let your body remember." The range fell silent. Her first shot hit dead center. Ethan's jaw tightened. The second, another bullseye, came faster. Before the third, Sarah twisted her ring, feeling Daniel's presence. The final shot struck true, 3 perfect hits. Ethan's face paled, caught between shock and rage. Claire displayed the targets, her voice warm. "Congratulations, Miss Bennett, remarkable." Ethan snatched the targets, desperation in his eyes. "Impossible," he hissed. "No one walks in and shoots like that. She rigged it." Sarah's voice stayed even. "We had a deal, Mr. Caldwell." "A deal with a cheater," Ethan snapped. Claire intervened. "Mr. Caldwell, Miss Bennett's shots were verified by dozens, including Senator Harris. They're legitimate." Ethan jabbed a finger at Claire. "Stay in your lane or you're done here." Sarah watched calmly. "If you're accusing me of cheating, perhaps we should discuss this privately." Ethan misread her. "So you can dodge the fallout? No, let's settle it here. 1 week from now, a formal competition, me versus the mystery shooter. 10 stations, varying distances, club-provided gear for fairness." Sarah hesitated, her desire for privacy clashing with a resolve she couldn't ignore. "I accept," she said. "Same terms, $50,000 to the Heroes Recovery Fund if I win." Ethan's smile was cold. "And when I win, you admit your trick." As the crowd dispersed, Claire approached Sarah. "That was either courageous or reckless. Ethan doesn't lose well and he's got clout here." Sarah gathered her things, drained. "I didn't want trouble, just practice." Claire studied her. "Yet you shoot like a pro. Who are you, Sarah Bennett?" Sarah's voice was soft. "Just someone keeping a promise." Unbeknownst to Sarah, Ethan was already on the phone, ordering his assistant to dig into her past. His voice trembled, not just with anger but fear. He'd seen something in her technique, the unmistakable precision of military training. Word of the showdown spread through Philadelphia's elite. By nightfall, Ethan was flooded with messages from peers, rivals, and reporters curious about the unknown woman who challenged him. In his penthouse overlooking the Schuylkill River, he swirled bourbon in a glass, his usual post-victory ritual now a balm for rattled nerves. His girlfriend, Lauren Hayes, scrolled her phone, tracking the buzz. "They're calling her the Shadow Sniper," she said. A grainy clip of her shot, gone viral. Ethan drained his glass. "One lucky day doesn't make a sniper. Next week she's exposed." Lauren's tone grew serious. "Ethan, those weren't lucky shots. I've seen you compete for years. She's good." His phone rang, his investigator. Tell me you've got something, Ethan demanded. The voice was cautious. Sarah Bennett, 36, senior auditor at Pinnacle Financial, moved from Norfolk 3 years ago. Clean record, low profile, no social media, no shooting history. Ethan's frustration grew. Nobody shoots like that without training. Keep digging. Across town, Sarah sat at her kitchen table, staring at her phone. Ryan Carter had called 4 times since the range. The shooting world, especially its military circles, was tight-knit. Sipping tea on her balcony, Sarah replayed the day. She regretted the challenge but felt a strange freedom, as if a buried part of her had stirred. Her phone buzzed. Claire Thompson. Ms. Bennett, I shouldn't be calling, but Ethan's digging into your background. He's convinced you cheated. Sarah sighed. Not surprised. Thanks for the heads up, I've got nothing to hide. Sarah opened a wooden box holding Daniel's medals, letters, and their wedding photo. Beneath the funeral flag was his training log. She flipped to pages knotting their sessions. Sarah, 50 yards, 8-10 bullseyes. Natural gift, outshoots most operators. The next day Sarah called in sick and drove to a public range far from Pinnacle's elite. For hours she practiced Daniel's techniques, each shot a dialogue with his memory. That evening, Claire texted. Ethan requested rule changes. 10 firearms, varying distances, board approved. Sarah replied, thanks, no changes needed. In his penthouse, Ethan grinned at the update. 10 firearms, he told Lauren. No way she matches my range. Lauren set her wine down. And if she does? Ethan's smile was icy. She won't, but I've got a backup plan. The day before the competition, Ryan Carter showed up at Sarah's door. Ignoring my calls, he teased, concern in his eyes. Sarah let him in. Been busy. Ryan eyed the shooting manuals on her table. Heard you're the talk of the community. Daniel would be proud not just of the shooting but you stepping up. Sarah's eyes welled. This wasn't planned, Ryan, he nodded. Best fights never are. You're not alone tomorrow. Friends will be there. Ryan warned, watch Ethan. Guys like him don't lose well. Sarah smiled faintly. I will, thanks for the pass, Ryan, he grinned, just keeping a promise to a brother. Ethan's investigation grew obsessive. By midweek his investigator hit pay dirt. Sarah Bennett, widow of Chief Warrant Officer Daniel Bennett, Delta Force sniper KIA 3 years ago, known for training his wife, called her a prodigy. Ethan felt a chill. Sarah wasn't a fluke, she was the student of a legend. His narrative of exposing a fraud crumbled, replaced by a story far more gripping, a hero's widow honoring his legacy against a privileged champion. Unaware of Ethan's discovery, Sarah prepared. On Friday, Claire called. Final stations, a custom Barrett M82, Ethan's specialty. Only a few exist in civilian hands. Sarah nodded, knowing her rifle experience was limited. She drove to a private range where a man with military bearing waited by a black SUV. Mrs. Bennett, Major Evans, ex-Delta, served with Daniel in Kandahar. Heard you need help with the Barrett. For hours, Evans coached her, noting her natural skill. He handed her Daniel's wind adjustment notes. He'd say, you've got this. Competition day turned the Pinnacle Marksmen Society into a spectacle. The event was public, drawing crowds. Claire warned Sarah of equipment irregularities favoring Ethan. Sarah nodded, unfazed. Ethan arrived with sponsors, his smile strained. Ms. Bennett, hope you're ready for the spotlight. It's tough for newbies. Sarah met his gaze. My husband taught me about pressure, Mr. Coldwell. The arena buzzed with digital scoreboards and 3 range masters. Military veterans, including Ryan, watched from the back. Through early stations, Ethan's polish shone, but Sarah's quiet precision kept pace. At the 5th station, a tampered trigger pull challenged her, but she adapted, matching Ethan's score. By the 8th, their scores were nearly tied, the crowd rooting for Sarah's understated skill. Before the 9th, Ethan leaned in. Nice work, Mrs. Bennett. Spector's style is unmistakable. I did my research. Sarah paused but held firm. Then you know he valued honor, Mr. Coldwell, something to think about. The 9th station ended in a tie. The final station, the Barrett M82, would decide it. Sarah spotted scope tampering but used Daniel's notes to adjust. Ethan shot first, hitting 9 of 10 inner rings. Pressure's a killer, he taunted. Sarah took position, a calm focus settling over her. A deliberate light flash from Ethan's team tried to disrupt her, but she refocused. Her 10 shots landed perfectly, surpassing Ethan. The crowd roared, giving her a standing ovation. Sarah Bennett, first place, Claire announced. Ethan's handshake was stiff, his whisper venomous. This isn't over. Sarah replied, it is for today, and you owe $50,000 to the Heroes Recovery Fund. Ethan's composure broke. A fluke doesn't beat experience, the gear was rigged. Claire held up footage of Ethan's team tampering, not in Sarah's favor. The crowd's admiration for Sarah deepened. She won despite sabotage. Ethan's career teetered. By morning, clips of Sarah's victory and Ethan's outburst went viral. She ignored media requests, calling Ryan. It's bigger than I thought. What now? Privacy or justice? He asked. Sarah chose justice. Ethan hasn't paid and tampering's fraud. Police questioned Ethan about gaming law violations. Meanwhile, Sarah met Colonel Margaret Lee of the Heroes Recovery Fund, who proposed she lead a veteran marksmanship program. Sarah accepted. Ethan's team offered $100,000, an apology, and a meeting. In a neutral room, Ethan admitted, "I built my life on being the best. You challenged that and I broke the rules." Sarah replied, "I shot to honor a promise, not to ruin you. Your actions hurt the sport and the charity." Ethan agreed to a 3-year suspension. 2 weeks later, Sarah led her first veteran class at the fund's new range, funded by Ethan's donation. "I'm Sarah Bennett," she told 6 scarred veterans. "I'm no soldier, just someone who learned strength comes from enduring storms." 6 months later, at a fundraiser, Sarah spoke of her journey from a grieving widow to a program leader. The Daniel Spector Bennett Marksmanship Scholarship was launched, its first recipient a wounded Marine. Twisting her ring, Sarah whispered, "For you, Daniel." Sarah's triumph wasn't just beating Ethan but reclaiming her life, honoring past and future. Her story taught a truth: never dismiss the quiet ones. Behind their stillness lies resilience, skill, and purpose forged in trials others can't fathom.